Most LinkedIn outreach sucks. It's copy and paste, it's salesy, it's soulless, and in all honesty, it gets ignored. But here's the thing, if it's done right, LinkedIn can be your biggest lead engine. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down the 5-step outreach strategy that I personally use, and I'm helping founders like you to book more quality calls weekly without being pushy, without being salesy, and without wasting people's time. Now, if you want more high converting leads and a real conversations with decision makers, then this video, ladies and gents, is for you. Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's business strategy with myself, Adam Strong. First of all, I wanted to kind of really break down a great framework that we've been using over the last 3 to 4 months. This particular framework is really going to help you generate some great leads in your business. The reason why a lot of people don't use outreach is, number one, they fall into one of 3 categories. Number one, they think it's spammy or salesy. Okay, so that's the first reason. Secondly, probably one of the reasons why I didn't start on it straight away is because I had this big fear of rejection. And number 3, if you do outreach strategy, or you've seen outreach strategy, it's not being done correctly, it's salesy, and guess what? It doesn't get any traction. So you'll probably fall into one of 3 categories. And what you really need is a framework. And this is the framework that I'm going to teach you. Let me give you the 5 steps, and then we'll go in deep about those 5 steps. So first of all, step number 1 is get clear on your ICP. So ICP, ideal customer persona. We're going to be going through that. Step number 2 is how to map out your campaign. So I'm going to walk you through about what we do in our business in terms of mapping out our campaigns. They're very, very simple. Less is more approach. So the more that you understand the campaign, the more that you simplify things, the more you understand where the customer goes from point A to point B. Point number 3, the importance of creating what I call a non-AI generated outreach message and being able to split test. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Step number 4 is different methods of outreach, pros and cons. And then step number 5, which is follow up. And I'll also give you a bonus at the end of this as well. So make sure that you've got your pen and paper handy, ladies and gents. So step number 1, your ideal customer persona. Now, without this, by the way, you cannot do a good outbound strategy on LinkedIn. It's just not physically possible. Some of you may have multiple skill sets, multiple talents, but I want you to think about a particular ideal customer that you'd like to work with. All right. Now, this is what I want you to do. Now, yes, you could think about, again, depending on if you're working more in the consumer market or it's B2B. So yes, you got demographics, which will be things like, who is that I need to speak to, what magazines do they read. So it could be kind of going into detail, the demographics. Where do they live? What, how much money they make? What position of power do they have? That kind of stuff. All right. So you've got what we call demographics, which is kind of scratching at the surface when it comes to ICP. One of the things that I do with my clients is I go in much deeper than that. So some of the things that I want you to consider is thinking about the internal drivers of your ICP, but also external drivers of your ICP. Let me explain what that means. Internal drivers are things such as psychological and emotional triggers. What does that mean in a nutshell? Well, it means, what is it what's the language that you need to use in order to grab someone's attention. That means looking at what are their pain points, what are their frustrations, what is keeping them up at night, what are their biggest fears. These are extremely important because again, they are the psychological triggers that's going to grab someone's attention. And how does that affect them emotionally? How does it affect them day to day? As I said, mentally and emotionally, how does it make them feel? What I really want you to do is I really kind of want you to get down to the root causes of why these things happen. Okay. So why is it that they feel the way they do? Why is it that they feel frustrated? Why is it that these things keep them up at night? Is it because of cash flow? Is it because of lack of leads? Is it the fact that they've got a toxic employee? What are the root causes? That's extremely important. What are the most common mistakes that they're making? What are the common, should we say, myths that is often used? Okay. So I want to really kind of delve in deep and understanding what their biggest dreams and their biggest desires are. This is extremely important because if you understand how they operate, what motivates them, what demotivates them, what pisses them off, what upsets them, but also about your ICP. What is it about? Why is it that they buy and what is it that they don't buy? So um, what is their buying decisions like? What is it that they look for? What is it they don't look for? Why is it that they buy a certain product? Why is it they don't buy a certain product? What is it that switches people on? What is it that switches people off? This is extremely important. Now, if you're really struggling with the ICP, ideal customer persona, and really kind of drilling that down, I actually have a really great tool for you guys. It's in the show description note, but it's called How to Create Clarity in Your Business Strategy. And there is a number of tasks and activities that you can do and fill in if you wish to do so. It's a great task, by the way. Spend a good hour on it, and you'll get a really great snapshot of understanding how your ICP operates, both mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. So I would highly recommend that if you really don't know who your ICP is. So that's step number one. Step number two is to map out your campaign. Now, what do I mean by mapping out the campaign? So one of the things that we do in our campaigns, and again, I'm just reading off what we do, is if you grab yourself an A4 sheet of paper and just put it into what I call landscape mode, as I got here. On the left-hand side, what you want to do is you want to write the word start. So this is where your customer starts, okay? And what we're doing is we're basically reverse engineering this, okay? So you start that on the left-hand side. On the very far right-hand side of the page, in a line with the start, is you want to have your call to action. Now, this could be, what is it that you want the prospect to do? Is it that you want them to book a call? Is it that you want them to open one of your lead magnets? Is it that you want them to fill in an assessment tool? Like, what is it that you want them to do? What's the action that you want them to do? That's very important. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to reverse engineer the process. So from start, put an arrow, and the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to send a connection request. Okay. Now, if you know who your ICP is, you're going to send out a connection request. Now, the next question that I often get asked is, but Adam, send a connection request. Do I add a note with that? Now, we've done testing on this. We've run a number of campaigns over the last 3 to 4 months. And what we have found is that if you send a connection request without a note, it has a conversion of between 60 and 70% on average. Now, if you are sending a connection request with a note, it often has a connection acceptance rate between 39 and 64. So what you'll find, but obviously you have to put in a lot more effort with worse results. So what I would recommend is send a connection request without a note. So that's what I would do. So that's the first step. The second step is you don't want to, once they've accepted your connection request, this is extremely important. You don't want to message them immediately. That just comes across as spammy. What you want to do is you want to leave between 3 and 6 hours before you message them again. All right. So you want to direct message them. Okay. You want to direct message them. Now, we've got a number of campaigns that we're creating in the back end. We have 2 different approaches to this. And again, you can test this and see what works for you. Hey guys, I just wanted to grab your attention because we've just created a brand new resource for you guys called the Exit Playbook, how to shift from operator to visionary leader. Now, this was based on a podcast that I did a few months ago and is the leadership blueprint for being able to help yourself successfully exit your business. Now, we go into many different things. We're going into some of the common symptoms of why founders get trapped in operations and what to look for and the impact that it actually has on you. We also go into some deep dive exercises that addresses some of the fears, some of the reflections, also how to basically let go of some of the control that you have, but more importantly, how to shift your identity within your business and how to align your strategy to your exit and how to challenge your belief systems, more importantly. Listen, it is a free playbook. The link is in the show description notes. Enjoy. I think you're going to find it a really useful resource. Take care. The first campaign, the first message that we send out is what we call the curious driven message. What does that actually mean? What that basically means is I tend to follow certain influencers or thought leaders within my area of expertise. So in my case, it would be M&A. Okay. In your case, what would it be? Would it be accountancy? Would it be whatever it might be? But think about the influencers within your space, the experts within your space, and they may have a large following. If you're into entrepreneurship, you might want to follow Stephen Bartlett or Daniel Priestley or whoever. Okay. So thinking about who sits within that realm of yours. And what you want to do is you want to connect with people that may have liked a post of one of those influencers. And one of the things that we tend to do is once we send out the direct message, it may look something like on the verge of, hey, Joe Blogs, great to connect, obviously. I saw you made a comment on whichever influencer that you're following, on whatever the article that they wrote or the post they wrote on social media marketing, on AI agents, whatever it might be. We've created, what is it that you've created? So in our case, what we've done is, hey, I saw a comment on so-and-so's thing on Retreat, X Retreat. We've actually created a case study that helps law firms, for example, grow their business by between 15 and 18% over the next 3 months. Would you be interested? Want a sneak peek? And so you're asking permission. It's permission-based messaging. So you've got something of value. It could be an assessment tool. It could be a case study. It could be a testimonial, whatever it might be, but something that gives people or gives the prospect a quick win. All right. Very important. You want to give them a quick win. And so you ask permission and you wait for their response. Now, the other angle that we do is what we call the direct message response, okay, which is a little bit different from the curious driven one. And it would sound like something like this. It would be, hey, Joe Blogs, great to connect. Had a quick look at your profile and I saw that you offer legal services for high net worth individuals or whatever it is that you offer for whoever it is that you offer. If I could help convert more clients, would you be that interest you, for example? Okay. So what you're doing is you're basically saying to them, you're saying to them, well, hey, I've got something here. I thought it might be of interest to you. Would you be open to having a conversation? So yeah, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to establish rapport with the other person. So that is the direct approach. All right. So that is the next step. Well, if you get a response, then great. You can obviously send on any links or any gifts that you may have. It might be that you featured on a podcast and you spoke about, I don't know, whatever it is that you speak around in terms of your industry, in terms of like your area of expertise. Okay. And you'd like to get some feedback or you thought it'd be of value to them. Okay. So you're trying to establish that trust element. So that's very important. The next step is I often get asked is how long should I wait before I follow up? So if you get a response, then obviously you can then build a report off the back of that. You would send them a link to your gift or whatever it is that you're offering to them. And you may finish with a question. Hey, I'm curious. What's your focus now? Hey, I'm curious. What's your exit strategy? Hey, I'm curious. What are you doing to grow your business, or whatever it is that you're specializing in? What are you curious about? Okay. If you don't hear from them, leave it for 7 days. And then 7 days later, you might want to send a follow-up message. And that message number 2 would be, hey, it would be something like, just bumping up my message here. I know life can be hectic. And just leave your name, and that's it. Wait 7 more days. Wait for a response. Hopefully you'll hear back. If you don't, then you would do another follow-up message, which is 7 days later. And it would be something like of, what is this relevant to you? ? And I want to be very clear here is that you are not being salesy, number 1. Number 2, they may be busy. They may be on holiday. They may be, whatever reason, they may not have prioritized to see your message. They may not be on LinkedIn that week, or whatever it might be. You don't know people's circumstances, so don't automatically assume they're not interested. This is the reason why you need to follow up. This is extremely important. So that is the framework for that. Step number 3 was to split test the message. Now, very important, I've just given you a couple of templates that you can use for the curious-driven message, but also the direct message, okay? Now, you may just suddenly tweak your messaging with a few words, maybe change the sentence, and split test them. See which one's more effective than another, all right? Very important. Step number 4 out of the framework, which is trying different communication methods. What do I mean by that? So what I tend to do is I tend to mix it up with text-based, okay? I also mix it up with some voice messages and some video. Now, the great advantage of using voice messaging or video is that it creates curiosity. And people are most likely to open those messages purely because they're like, wonder why they're messaging me. It creates that curiosity element. Whereas a text, it doesn't create curiosity. It actually takes it away. But the great thing is that you can automate the text version of it, whereas the voice messaging and also the video messaging at the moment is going to require a little bit more heavy lifting on your part. So you may want to test it with a small batch of people. So that's tip number 4. Tip number 5, step 5 of the framework is follow-up. Extremely, extremely important. So I've given you my follow-up process that I use when I set up campaigns for my clients. Normally have 1 week in between messages. Now, what I want to do is I want to provide you with an additional tip to measure your outbound strategy. And so we use a very simple spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, we use a spreadsheet called LAPS. Now, what does LAPS mean? Well, LAPS, the L stands for leads. So a lead is someone that you may have messaged and you got a response from. Okay, so that's a lead. The A stands for appointments. So how many appointments have you got? The P stands for presentations. Okay, and the S stands for sales. So this is a great tool to use for your sales teams or your BD teams. So using a very simple spreadsheet where you can track who is in your pipeline, okay, and update that spreadsheet on a daily or a weekly basis, depending on how much outreach you're using. So step number 1 was get very clear on your ICP. So I talked a lot about your demographics, your internal and external drivers. I talked a little bit about fears, pain points, problems, challenges, fears. Really get focused on understanding your ICP. So that's the first one. Second one is how to map out your campaign from point A to point B and then reverse engineer. So thinking about in the back of your mind, what is it that you want the client to do or the prospect to do? Yeah. Step number 3, I talked a little bit about the importance of split testing your messaging. Step number 4, I talked about the different types of outbound messaging. So I've used text, voice messaging, video messaging. If you're using voice and video messaging, you might want to use a small batch of people just to test on a small scale to see which is more effective. And then tip number 5, the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up. You've probably heard of that before, and it's absolutely true. So Hope that's given you a bit of an eye opener. Now, from my end, I'm going to make sure that in the show description notes, I'm going to put through some of the tools that we're using. So we use a great tool called HeyReach, which is great for automating your campaigns. We also use, what was I going to say to you? We also use the playbook that I told you about, which is around the ICP. I'll put that there in the show description notes as well. And if you follow this 5-step framework, I can guarantee you that you will get a great outbound strategy. It's just a matter of experimenting, tweaking, or whatever it is. So lots of information to take in. Listen, guys, if this is the first time or many times that you listen to this, please do me a favor. What I've noticed is that a lot of people that are listening have not subscribed and follow. Please do me a favor. Is there anything you can do for me? Follow and subscribe this show over on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, or on YouTube. I'll be extremely grateful. Feel free to leave a 1 or a 5-star review. I'll be grateful as well. But hopefully you have got some value from today. And hopefully we'll see you again back on the Business Strategist. Take care and speak to you soon. Cheers.